On today's show, Nick Pivetta of the San Diego Padres is reportedly on the trade block, despite such a strong season, and season in which he saved the Padres pitching and a team that really needs pitching. So, what the heck is the thinking here?
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the business, for Monday, December 8th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but also various other outlets, including justbaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. On today's episode, guys, we got to talk about a report about Nick Pivetta reportedly being a player that the Padres are considered trading. That is a big deal, right? That is a huge deal. And then we're getting to some of your mailbag questions and comments, some of them in good faith, right? Some of them in very good faith, and a good amount of them not in good faith. And those are usually from the Dodger folk. But we'll be getting into that, talking about a lot of them. You guys left a lot of great comments. And at the very minimum, some very entertaining comments. Let me just say that in the mailbag segment. But let's first start with a report from The Athletic that Nick Pivetta may be a person that the team is trying to trade. The Padres have shown a willingness to entertain offers for Nick Pivetta, according to league sources at The Athletic. A deal involving the right-hander is not considered likely. San Diego requires steep return in exchange for losing Pivetta, but the team's options for balancing its payroll are limited. The article goes on to talk about, backloaded contract, right? Right, in the sense that last year he was only getting paid in 2025, Nick Pivetta only getting paid $1 million, and next year it'll be $19 million, right? So that's up a decent amount, right? He also received a $3 million signing bonus. And then next November, with 2 years and $32 million still owed to him, he can opt out of the deal and seek greater compensation in free agency. Another productive season might render such an outcome inevitable. Pivetta is coming off a career year in which he delivered a 2.87 ERA and finished 6th in National League Cy Young Award voting. Meanwhile, Fangraphs projects the Padres' payroll at $201 million amid a pending lawsuit and the expiration of a sale. Team sources indicate the target for opening day is not far above that number. Trading Pivetta would weaken San Diego's area of greatest need. Joe Musgrove, who is returning for Tommy John surgery, and Randy Vasquez, who has struggled to miss bats, are penciled in behind him. But the potential pending free agents stands out as an intriguing chip, especially as the league-wide demand for starting pitching continues to soar. So there's a lot to get into with this, whether or not Nick Pivetta could be traded, right? Because Nick Pivetta was the saving grace in a lot of ways for this pitching staff last year, considering the bad season from Dylan Cease, considering Joe Musgrove being out with Tommy John surgery, and considering the oft injured year that Michael King had, right? So I think that's an issue. But the fact that apparently that the payroll is expected to be something that isn't far above $201 million in a vacuum, that is totally fine. Let me be clear. I don't want to do the hating necessarily on ownership entirely, because most teams would kill to have a $200 million payroll. And if you're in this position where they're trying to say, hey, let's cut back a little bit, right? Maybe that's more of just saying, hey, we can't go up there in the 250 range like some of the other big market teams, but we can still spend a lot. Right. And especially coming off a year in which they broke the attendance record again. They've been up there in attendance every single year. They've been a big story of the sport, and they've had all these big stars, and they've had some really nice moments and all of that. And not to mention a lot of the contracts that are just on there long term, right? The article goes on to talk about how the team will have to at some point consider trading Fernando Tatis Jr., a thing that, again, I don't want to get on like too much of a media soapbox, but I must reiterate, I have been hearing about Fernando Tatis Jr. trade rumors for 4 years now. And in his case, he literally has a no trade clause. So I'm struggling to see how such a trade would occur, not to mention that he's still very good, outside of the fact that he is just the best asset they have if he were to be traded. But all those extenuating factors I just mentioned seem to be getting ignored. But again, I could be wrong. Maybe they're convincing him behind the scenes to waive his trade clause. Maybe if the team starts falling apart, he might consider waiving his no trade clause and saying, I want to go win somewhere. Trade me to, I don't know, right? LA apparently is what's fun for the sport now, right? So there, whatever it is, right? Yankees, the Mets, whatever. That could totally happen. But then that leaves, there's just a bunch of other questions here, because with the pitching in doubt, right? With the fact that this team, we are unsure of what they're going to do with this rotation, right? And while I do trust that AJ Preller, or at least I have some, let's say, optimism, I don't want to say full trust that AJ Preller is aware of this problem, right? And that he has been aware of this problem since long before we ever talked about it, right? He knew before last season even started, I got to start considering what we do for starting pitching options beyond this season, because we're likely losing Dylan Cease, and we are very, very, very likely. I'm sorry, we were certain to lose Dylan Cease, who just got paid 7 years, 200, right? By the Blue Jays. There's no way they were affording that. And then we're likely losing Michael King. So I have to hope that he prepared for this and that there will be some options, because again, I must reiterate, we are on like year 5. Honestly, I would argue that we are, ever since the Manny Machado signing, we have been getting questions. It's always out there in national media, especially, about how can the Padres keep doing this, right? And then we especially have gotten it even more since 2021. And I'm just saying that you've seen the team still hand out some deals since then. Obviously, some things have changed, but I'm just saying I had heard that the Padres were in financial issues. How could they possibly do this? Since before they gave out the Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts money. So that's what I'm trying to say, right? Like, I just don't know fully how to gauge some of these reports and rumors. I do think that they want to cut back on payroll. I'm not saying that that's a lie, but to what degree they are in total disarray is I'm just a little bit unsure. Right? Yes, ownership wants to sell. But you know why ownership wants to sell? Because it wasn't their team to begin with. It was Peter Seidler's team. This was his thing, right? So that's a big, big factor on this, right? And then you have the lawsuit, which is a whole other issue, right? And I don't have time to talk about that today. But Nick Pivetta, I will say there is a little bit of savviness potentially in a deal like this. He is going to get paid next year about what I think he would get in a vacuum, like on the open market, around $19 million per year, around that, especially for a starting pitcher who has been consistent in innings and has been consistent in strikeout. Not always the overall results, right? He did a lot better this year, 2.87 ERA, but that's just going to serve you potentially a lot. And if you could get some young controllable assets, that could be worth it for this Padres team that as of right now, we're basically hoping that future-wise, that AJ Preller does, in fairness, what he's always done, which is procure more talent in the farm system. They have been masters at identifying talent. Developing talent, not always, but masters at identifying really good talent in MLB draft, whatever, international free agency, etc., like Leo DeVries, like Ethan Salas, guys like that, right? So we'll have to see how that pans out. But I will say, I did a player review. I talked about Nick Pivetta's season a little more than a month ago. And I would say that there is a little bit of savviness in the sense that he might have overperformed a little bit, right? Like, do we really think that he's a sub-3 ERA guy now? Now, there were some stuff about him that was totally, I could see him do it again. But could he have a little bit of a regression year? Could he go back to a 3.7 ERA? I could see that. And if you were able to get for him value that matches up with what he did this year, that might be worth it, right? And this is still a team that we've seen for a while now has been able to replace starting pitching. And I think that could be a huge get for them, right? If they are able to offload this contract, get out a little bit of money, if they're able to get out of Jake Cronenworth, the other player that has been reportedly being shopped around, and there have been trade talks involving him, right? A player that isn't necessarily bad on the AAV front, but with the length of the contract, just getting a little bit of salary relief in that regard could prove valuable for the Padres. So again, I don't know if Nick Pivetta will get traded. I think it's pretty unlikely personally. I really do. I just don't. I think Cronenworth I could see, and I think that if he had no trade clause, frankly, I could even see a world in which Tatis might be a little bit more on the market, because you could get so much for him, right? You could get every prospect in the Yankee system, more or less, for Tatis right now, despite what all the comments and people on the internet say about him being overrated, right? So I'm curious to see how it plays out, but as we've been saying whole offseason, I just need a better, clearer picture, because we've been hearing this for a while. We heard this last year. They signed Nick Pivetta. Right. So what are they able to do? We will have to see, because we also don't know how the lawsuit, how the selling of the team is going to go down. So I wouldn't raise every alarm in this regard, just because I've been hearing people raise alarms for years now, and they continue to go out and compete and at least have some decent players in their midst. So we'll have to see how it all breaks out. But folks, let me tell you, if you need some other action, FanDuel is there for you. NFL Sundays, man, they move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. Like the Bengals and Bills game. Looked like the Bills were cooked, and then Joe Burrow throws the pick six. It was a tip at the line of scrimmage, but you get my point. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. money spreads, money lines, I should say, live spreads, adjust instantly, player props, update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. Keeps you locked in. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and guess what? So can you. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing despite it all. Yeah, Nick Pivetta, could he be traded? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below this video or any other video. Frankly, I don't care. I'll get a notification for it. Let me know what you think. And also let me know what you think to be featured on the mailbag, which we're going to get into in just a second, everybody. It is great. Love responding to all your comments, including the trolls, which I have to admit, a lot of trolls this offseason. People are bored, which I get. I'm a little bit bored too. This is what happens in baseball. We enter a little bit of a lull period where you're just kind of waiting for things to happen. I also think, again, one thing that I have not seen consistently from reporting on the Padres is everyone seems to be ignoring the Mason Miller factor. It's just something that I've been noticing. Again, it depends on how free agency goes. It depends if they trade someone, but everyone keeps like forgetting that AJ Preller like very kind of gave a wink after making the trade that they might use him as a starter. Like, and that makes the trade makes it all make much more sense. So I really think that it's a lot more likely than not that Mason Miller is in this rotation come next season. I really do. I really, really do. And I think that they're saying, you know what, that's more important. Let's plug up the rest of the bullpen with other guys we've got. You know, Bradley Rodriguez could go out and be awesome. Sean Reynolds could have a bounce back and be awesome. Marinaccio could be great, like on top of Estrada and Jason Adam and Adrian Morejon, who we already know are pretty damn good. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But let's get into some of your questions and comments, guys, because we have a lot. I forgot if I answered this one, but I just want to raise it one more time. At Garvinland 9490, the idea that the Dodgers hand out blank checks to the top free agents every offseason is a parroted service level take. They did sign Soto, Judge, or Turner in 23, Seager in 22, Cole in 20, Harper in 19, or Hosmer in 18. Just kidding. Haha, very funny. The only free agents they've signed at or above the money being speculated for Tucker are Ohtani, a unicorn, and Yoshi, a phenom. They also acquired Mookie, but he was a traded exec. This is hilarious. Maybe they do spend big money on Tucker, but it would indeed be a shift in how they traditionally spend money on free agents. This comment's just hilarious because you are ignoring Freddie Freeman. You were ignoring that part of the reason you trade for Mookie Betts is because you'll be able to keep him for longer. And that's why they did it, right? They did it even more because they're like, we can afford this. And they spent big on Mookie Betts. And frankly, the money that they gave out, that tells me that even if they didn't have to trade for him, they were probably going to go out for him in free agency if they were willing to give Mookie Betts the contract that he ended up giving, which I believe was it 13? Let me see. How much did Mookie Betts get? 12 years, 365. Something tells me they were going to shell that out also in free agency, but they were like, let's go for it now, as they should, right? I love that. Always be aggressive, right? And then you ignore Blake Snell, and then you ignore Tanner Scott, Freddie Freeman, Roki Sasaki to a smaller degree, right? That was a international free agent, so it's a little bit different. And just ignoring Tyler Glass now, Teoscar Hernandez wasn't a top free agent, but this past offseason he was up there, and they re-signed him, as they should. So again, the idea that like the Dodgers haven't been right there with the teams for the top free agent is hilarious. And again, it would still, and that's not including Shohei Yamamoto, the little cherry pick on that regard. So whatever. Anyway, let's talk about Jake Cronenworth though. We had some interesting like clashes when it comes to Jake Cronenworth in the comments. We got a lot of them, right? So first, some love. Robin Birdie 9938 says Jake is a fan favorite and has been with the team since 2020. He will always be remembered for his double against the Dodgers in the 22 NLDS. He has versatility in that he can play first, second, and shortstop. That versatility is huge and could be another Ben Zobrist type player. If some team offers us a double A or triple A starting pitcher for him, I might consider it. Only problem is we have no one right now to play at second. So that would need to be addressed through the farm system or free agency. I agree. And then also mentioned by at Mike Castleberry 80, Jake Cronenworth is the kind of player Padres fans gravitate to historically. Kind of sucky bat, but with flashes here and there, but hustles a lot and has a good glove. Problem is, we usually had crappy teams, so that guy is the big star compared to the rest of the crappy team. We now have legit stars that are competitive, but it's hard to not keep rooting for these types of dudes thanks to decades of conditioning. I feel that, man. I think that's a good analysis, and I think that that's sometimes why fans, lose it a little bit. Padres fans aren't used to actually being able to go and get good players. I get it. It's tough out here. But we had some negativity. At Jackie Ward 3032 says Jake strikes out all the time. Stands there, takes the first 2 pitches for strikes, then swings at the 3rd pitch. Trade him, time to go. And on at Joe Rugaricia 9, hopefully I said that right. 9167 says, let's be real bad. Jake was cheeks. Not a fan. Time to let him go and start using Johnson more. Dude is fast and he has a good bat. Well, Bryce Johnson, first of all, is an outfielder, right? I don't know if he would necessarily immediately fit in. Maybe he could. Again, I actually talked about the season in review that we've been doing over the past, like, that Bryce Johnson, like, had like a nice little, stretch. I just don't know if he's a proven like major league talent or anything like that. Let's be very, very careful in assuming that, and especially in assuming that he could play a position that he hasn't played, which is in the infield. And the second thing, Jake Cronenworth does not strike out a lot. I don't know where you're getting this. Jake Cronenworth last year struck out just 13.4% of the time. So that's not the best in the world. And his overall strikeout rate for his career is 9.9%. That's not very bad. And he has a walk rate to offset it. He had 20.8% last year. And if you're talking about he just sees the first 2 strikes and swings and miss, this feels very much you're going by only the playoffs. If you're going by the playoffs, he was dreadful. Obviously, in the 2025 playoffs, he was terrible, like most of the team, right? But the idea that he just takes pitches and that's it, it's not true. He was actually in the top 10 in pitches per plate appearance last year. So again, Jake Cronenworth, fine player. He's just not a superstar. And I think that people are forgetting that not every player on a team is a superstar, right? Or at least it's not usually going to be out that way. Heck, even Mookie Betts, who is a superstar player, had a pretty down year by his standards this year. So that's just what happens. You're not going to have stars all over the place. It's very rare that you just have everybody in sync and hit at the same exact time, right? And then this comment, honestly, one of my favorite comments I've gotten on this channel for a while. At Brandon Lindquist 3389 says, Jacob was not that good, dude. LOL. Some of your takes are awful. And to say Jake wasn't worth the money is crazy. The guy won us the playoffs the year before. Just a work of art. Just a work of art. So Jacob isn't good, but also saying Jake isn't worth the money is crazy. He won us the playoffs. That's the comment. That's the type of comments I sometimes get on this channel. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. What can I say? It's crazy. At Brandon Lindquist also says, dude, you two both have no idea about guys from our farm system, in reference to Friday's episode with Aram Layton. Nobody knows. LOL. These guys think they have the in on the team. You only been covering this team for 6 years, bro. You're a casual fan. Been here for 30 plus years. Been here through all the bad years and terrible teams. This is a great time to be a Padres fan. Enjoy it. Stop bashing the team. Again, it's really hard sometimes to know what some commentators want. Like, if I bash the team, it's you're not doing your job, which is not true. My job is to be a spokesperson for the Padres. And then also it's, well, you're being biased. You should criticize the team when needed. So you just get these comments all the time. And again, the farm system with Arm, go check that out. Arm is one of the best prospect people I know. He was high on Merrill before anyone else. He was high on James Wood before anyone else. He was high on what's it called? The CJ Abrams pick. This guy is really great. He's a good friend of mine. He's been killing it with prospect analysis for years. So I need to understand what exactly you know. And also the other thing about it is our conversation wasn't about like, we know what's going to happen. No, we're just going based off of someone who actually covers minor league sports and knows, hey, here's what the system looks like right now. And again, we also talked about the fact that the Padres are really good at replenishing their system. And one of these guys, like Mendez, could go out next year and be awesome, and all of a sudden he's in the top 100. We don't know. We're just talking about the current state, and the current state of the Padres farm system, as evidenced by the fact that you have not seen them attached in a real way to big-time trades in a while, like a Tariq Skubal, is evidence, right? They don't have as many top level prospects. This is industry buzz. People who do farm system stuff also talk to people who are part of the team, right? Like they get a little bit of a temperature check on how players and people within teams think, right? Baseball America does that, right? Like they have some sources. That's how journalism works. So again, the idea that Arb and I don't know what we're talking about is insane. But what else can you expect from commenters on this channel? They are insane. Another comment at civil_Luthi says, oh no, how can we replace 160 innings of 4.45 ERA, 8 wins, 12 losses performance? Of course, referring to Dylan Cease. It's so rare and hard to find. I guess the strikeouts make up for the inability to not give up runs, but I still think the Padres are fine. Again, It's also important, remember, that Dylan Cease had a down year. And I think that one of the reasons people are big on him is because a lot of data shows that he should be at least better than this year, that he got slightly unlucky, but also just had just a bad season, like a down year. And his strikeout potential and his innings are big time, right? But I also agree, although I don't know that this is the main point of your sentiment, that it is possible for the Padres to replace that. They were still really good this year, or at least good, despite the fact that they got nothing out of Dylan Cease, that they more or less got nothing out of Michael King because he was so hurt so much, right? That's the whole thing, right? And in that respect, I do agree. But folks, you guys know, we ain't done yet. We ain't done with the mailbag questions. We got more to go, including one, potentially, about Max Muncy being clearly better than Manny Machado from my oh-so-favorite group of constituents of this podcast, the unbiased Dodger fans. But first, let me take a second, guys, to talk to you about the World Cup, because it's coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But getting tickets could be pretty tough, right? And that's why Game Time is here. It's here in the clutch, giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, layout makes it so simple. You just scroll through the matchups, you compare seats, you get seat views to have an idea if you're a visual learner like myself, right? You can pick a section, and they have this zone deals thing, right? You just pick a zone, an area of the stadium. They pick the seat, and you save big. Prices are included up front, no surprise fees. It's great, guys. Take the guesswork and stress out of buying World Cup tickets at every match, concert, or event, not just the World Cup, with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go with the old pals at Game Time. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing despite it all, man. Despite it all. Let's get back into the mailbag because we still have a lot of questions and comments to get into. And I actually lied. I might save the Max Muncy debate for tomorrow's episode. I don't know exactly, but let's get into it. At Ramamurti9938 says, question for Monday's show. I heard an interview with Lucas Giolito on another baseball podcast. He had a good year last year for Boston and is a free agent now. Is it possible for the Padres to sign him? Would give us a veteran pitcher. Any low under the radar pitchers we can sign in general, though. This is a great question. We're actually going to do that later this week, but I will say that with Lucas Giolito, I like him a lot. Again, what degree to which the Padres could afford a pitcher and what degree they will be able to spend is still up in the air. It's just really, really hard to gauge. Maybe things are being overreported. Again, that's what I talked about before. That, in my opinion, yes, bias, and yes, some people will say I'm coping, which is also possible, totally possible. I acknowledge that that might be the case. I've just been hearing for a while that the Padres are strapped for cash. So I just need to see it. I need to see it like concretely. I need to see an offseason in which they truly do nothing, right? Then I might be more in on that. But for now, I like Giolito. Giolito has also felt like, for a bunch of reasons, a candidate for the right pitching coach to be able to get his mechanics right, because he's had some up and down years. And at best, he's been a Cy Young contender. So could that be a guy to go after? Absolutely. We'll have to see, though, because it's all going to depend on the budget. And right now, I'm not confident in saying that we know what we'll be able to do in that regard, right? At Phoenix Ash 927 says, hypothetical question. If Miller stays the closer and at the end of 2030, he is the leader in saves and save percentage in MLB, would you be satisfied with trading DeVries for a reliever? We can even say that DeVries came up in 2028, won Rookie of the Year, and to the All-Star game twice. Both extreme situations, I know, but I'd be curious if that would be enough value from trade DeVries to be worth it to you. Great question, man. Great question. Like, just a hypothetical, like, basically we're saying DeVries comes up and is pretty good, and then we're also saying, well, Miller from here to 2030 is awesome, one of the best closers of baseball, and he gets all those like awards and all that accolades and whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's tough, man. That's tough. Oh, man, that's really, really tough. I'm going to say, because the reason that I think the DeVries trade could be a problem is because of the situation they're in right now, right? What if they had DeVries right now and they were like basically, I think the way to look at it is this. If someone said the Padres can trade DeVries for Mackenzie Gore or for Mason Miller, which direction do you think you go? I think you go in the direction of Mackenzie Gore, only because it's just harder to find controllable starting pitching than it is to find relievers. Relievers as good as Mason Miller is hard, but relievers year to year, I think there's a way in which you could build a bullpen, even if you don't have that super duper star of an all-star type of closer, right? That's just me. Like, remember, they still have Estrada under control. They're going to have Adam for this next year and Morejon for this next year. And look at just their overall ability to procure relief pitchers. And if it doesn't go well, relief pitching is one of the easiest and most common things to trade for at the trade deadline. So I'm going to say a little bit of no, but it wouldn't be a disaster. I will tell you that much. I would, if it turns out that DeVries is good, but Mason Miller's been this whole time, I say the trade is like, it's like a wash, right? Like it played it off. They didn't totally win the trade, but they certainly didn't totally lose it, I think, if Mason Miller stays good. I'm just wondering, did you use your resources properly given the needs of the team, given the budget, all that stuff? I personally have to believe that AJ Preller knew, or at least maybe had an idea that they were thinking of selling, maybe, right? People talk, you know what I mean? I have to think that. So did he plan ahead, I think, is the big question. And let me tell you, some of you don't like him. At la 4465 says, year after year we see Preller with bad deadline trades that set the Padres back for years. Last year, no exception. Anyone who argues that the team was never this good in the past neglects the resources that AJ has had at his disposal compared to past GMs. We were never top 10 in payroll before AJ. If AJ is such a good scout, let's see those guys develop internally and stop trading them away for short-term rentals. It is no longer a sustainable strategy. Again, I've said a lot on this show. I really do believe that any kind of opinion of AJ Preller is fair. I really do. I think that sometimes he gets overhated. I think sometimes he gets underhated. He's complicated. But I will say it is important to remember that it's not a guarantee that if you have the assets around you that you're going to make moves. We saw that with the Baltimore Orioles. They got a new owner who said, we're down to spend. And what did they do? They didn't spend anything, right? And then predictably, heading into the season with Charlie Morton as your number one starting pitcher, backfired, and they were atrocious and one of the worst teams in the league, right? That is possible as well. You look at the Braves. The Braves have had some decent assets for a while, and they didn't make a lot of moves, and they didn't make a lot of signings necessarily that you would like to see because their GM was a little bit scared, or at least less complacent, or less willing to take a risk, I think is the better word. But it's also fair for you to point out that if you had a little bit more of a blank check, if you had more of an ability to spend, could you do better? Sure. But we also don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know that maybe AJ Preller had to do in order to get Xander Bogaerts. Maybe he had to give him more than what he was being offered in order for him to come to a smaller market that doesn't have the same degree of sponsorship and, off-field, other money revenue generating ventures that say the Dodgers and the Blue Jays have a whole country, right? The Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies, that maybe that's part of why he has to offer more, right? And I will say that the reason why I overall am pro AJ is because of his ability to scout talent. Let's remember, scouting and the draft picking is completely different than the developing. Development, I am fully with you there. Like, the Padres have not been a very good development team. And I've heard that not just based on what I think, not just on the reports that I've read publicly, but also some people that I know that are like, yeah, man, they're not the best at developing. I think that they're getting better in the pitching side of things, especially in the major league level. But overall, they still have a lot to learn in that regard. And that's why the pitching lab, that's why them becoming more of a thing has helped to hopefully boost their prospects in that regard in the future. But again, it's going to be really, really tough to see how this all plays out, I think, for the Padres, because with AJ Preller, yes, it is also true that maybe you're going a little bit too much on the present instead of saying, let's have some flexibility in case things go wrong, because life is unpredictable. And so is baseball. And in the case of baseball, maybe we didn't know that there was going to be a lawsuit, that Peter Seidler was going to pass. By all accounts, it was unexpected passing, right? It wasn't expected to be that. You don't know what's going to happen, right? So it's better to keep your ammo in the chamber. But as much as I hate him, I hate those negativity, the negative aspects of AJ Preller. I think his ability to consistently retool this farm system and make it possible for them to make trades is a good thing. And remember, yes, he has all these assets, but have you noticed all these teams that have been bad for a while and other teams that have had other prospects that they don't trade and all that stuff? Look at the St. Louis Cardinals, right? The St. Louis Cardinals reportedly didn't want to add Dylan Carlson in a deal for Juan Soto. Where's Dylan Carlson right now? Basically nowhere, right? So it is also possible that you have to have the gumption and the guts to be able to make these moves and have relationship with teams to be able to make these moves. And all the trades have not been a disaster. That's just not true. Juan Soto was great for this team, right? Blake Snell was great for this team. What's it called? Mason Miller was great in his role for this team. Tanner Scott was great for his role in this team. Ramon Laureano was great for this team. Right. So there have been a lot of good moves. It's just that he has missed on some of the big ones, like your Xander Bogaerts, like your Eric Hosmer, like your Yu Darvish and Jake Cronenworth, the latter two, to a little bit lesser extent than the others. But overall, yeah, it's totally fair to have this opinion on AJ Preller. I really do. He's impossible to feel. But I overall say yes, because I like his ability to identify talent, despite the fact that they have not been in full rebuild like some other teams getting high draft picks. And they've still been able to retool and make a lot of moves. So yeah, that's my thing. But with that all being said, guys, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to focus on sending me some mailbag questions and comments in the mailbag section. You can leave in the oh, wow, I said that really wrong. Leave your comments in the YouTube comment section, and I will get back to them, including the trolls, because it is fun and it is the off season. So I got to respond to them. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about clutch. What does that mean exactly? That's right. It has to do with some of your mailbag comments about Manny Machado and the team's ability to produce with runners in scoring position. We're going to talk about that, answer more of your mailbag questions throughout the week, talk about some of my favorite under-the-radar bats and pitchers that the Padres should keep an eye out for. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys, and I hope that everybody is having fun listening to the podcast. And also, if you're not, let me know too. Whatever, right? Like, that's also allowed. It is. It is also allowed. You could do that. It's true. Anyway, with that, I'm stalling. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My 5 faithful homies, take